If you're looking at moving to San Diego County and you want a detached home with a little more space, a little more value, and some newer options than you're gonna find closer to the coast, San Marcos is probably going to end up somewhere on your list. And on paper, it checks a lot of boxes. You're still in North County, San Diego. You can get to the beach in around 20 to 30 minutes, depending on where you live. You have the established neighborhoods, you have golf course communities, you have newer master planned areas, trails, parks, schools, Cal State San Marcos, and a whole new downtown style area starting to take shape around North City. But that's not the full picture, because the same growth that made San Marcos one of the more interesting cities in North County has also created some real trade-offs. There are parts of town where traffic can get old pretty fast. Some of the newer neighborhoods are much tighter than they look online. The weather can be noticeably warmer than the coast. And depending on the neighborhood, two homes at a similar price point can give you a completely different day-to-day experience. So in this video, I'm breaking down what it's actually like living in San Marcos right now, the neighborhoods you should know about, what different detached home budgets can realistically buy, and who San Marcos may or may not make sense for. But first, if you don't know me yet, I'm Chris Erickson with the Livin in San Diego real estate crew. I grew up right here in San Marcos. I went to school here. My brother still lives there. My business partner Cassidy lives there right now. And we help people make the move throughout San Diego County. So when the time is right for you, reach out. All of our info is right down below in the description. And if you want more honest breakdowns of the different cities, different neighborhoods, and areas around San Diego, make sure you subscribe. When I was growing up in San Marcos, it was much more of a drive-through city. There were a lot more open fields. There were hills that had not been graded yet and kind of getting ready for new construction. There were areas where you could ride your bikes, build jumps, and explore. And a lot of that is gone now. San Marcos has continued to build out over the past 20 plus years. And you can really see it around areas like North City, Rancho Tesoro, Mission Circle, the Hill District, San Alejo Hills. And that growth is the main story in San Marcos right now. Now, on the positive side, you have more housing options, you have new parks, you have newer schools and school improvements, you have more restaurants, more shops, more healthcare options, and more energy around Cal State San Marcos. But with more housing comes more people. With more people comes more cars, and with more cars comes more congestion, and that's one of the biggest trade-offs. San Marcos is really evolving from an older suburban city into a much more built-out North County hub. And whether you see that as a positive or a negative, it's probably going to depend on exactly where you live and what you want your day-to-day life to look like. Now, before we dive into the neighborhoods, let's talk about price, because that is usually why people start looking at San Marcos in the first place. You're moving a little bit further inland compared to Carlsbad or Encinitas and some of the other coastal communities. And generally speaking, that can give you more options for detached homes, but San Marcos is not one market. You have older homes in the northern and eastern parts of the city. You have established master plan communities. You have newer detached homes on smaller lots. You have higher end properties with views. You have golf course homes. And you also have a handful of neighborhoods that feel completely different from one another. And as of filming this video right now, the median price for a detached home is right around $1.1 million. But that median doesn't tell the full story. At the more accessible end of the detached home market, you find smaller, older homes in areas like Richland, Nob Hill, or Eastern San Marcos. And as you move up in price, you start getting into larger established homes, older master plan neighborhoods like Discovery Hills, and more options in communities like Twin Oaks or Santa Fe Hills. Then you get into San Alejo Hills, Lake San Marcos, larger lot pockets, view homes, and newer detached options closer to like North City and the Hill District. And one thing to keep in mind with some of the newer construction is that the starting price point is not always the final number. Depending on the property, you may need to account for HOA fees, Mello-Roos, upgrades, landscaping, window coverings, and other expenses that are not necessarily obvious when you first see the model home. So San Marcos can offer more value than the coast, but you still need to compare the actual monthly cost and not just the list price. And real quick, before we actually keep going, this is exactly where local knowledge matters. A home can look great online, but the neighborhood, the traffic pattern, the lot size, the HOA, and even which side of the hill you're on can change the whole experience quite a bit. So if San Marcos is on your list and you want help narrowing down the areas that actually line up with what you're looking for, reach out. Me and Cassidy, we're the ones answering the calls, the texts, and the emails, and we love to help get you dialed in. All right, let's start with the schools, because that is one of the major considerations for a lot of buyers. San Marcos Unified has changed quite a bit over the years. When I went to high school there, it was an older campus with a bunch of portables. That entire campus was eventually taken down and completely rebuilt. It was a totally different school than the one I went to. You've also seen improvements and newer facilities throughout the district, with schools serving areas like San Leo Hills, Discovery Hills, Richland, and newer communities around central San Marcos. Now, one important thing to understand is that school boundaries matter. Two homes that are relatively close to each other may not feed into the same schools. Boundaries can change over time, so you always want to verify the specific address directly with the district. And even if schools are not a major consideration for your move, they can still affect demand and resale value. Education is a bigger story in San Marcos beyond the K through 12 level as well. You have Palomar College in the northern part of the city. You have Cal State San Marcos in the southern part of town. And Cal State San Marcos has grown quite a bit over the years, and the expansion is a big part of why the surrounding area feels so different today, which leads directly into neighborhoods, because when you break San Marcos down by budget and housing style, you start to see how different each part of town really is. Let's start at the more accessible end of the detached home market. If you're trying to get into a single family home in San Marcos without jumping straight into some of the higher price points, areas around Richland and Nob Hill are worth understanding. These are older areas, generally with smaller footprints than some of the newer communities. You're gonna see a lot of homes built in the 1970s, the 1980s, and depending on the exact street, you might find single-story homes, two-story homes, smaller yards, and some homes that have been updated over time. But one thing I like about some of these older pockets is the way they're laid out differently than some of the newer construction communities. You're gonna find community parks tucked into some of the neighborhoods. You can find a lot of the landscaping is mature and grown out. You might find a lower HOA cost or no HOA cost at all, depending on the property. And in some parts, you have relatively quick access to the 78 and the 15, which definitely matters if you're commuting. The trade-off is that some of these homes are older. Some may need updates. The floor plans can be smaller, and you're not getting that polished master plan community feel that like places like San Leo Hills. But if your priority is getting a detached home at a more approachable price point, this is where I would start looking. Now, as you move up from there, one area that stands out is Discovery Hills. It's not brand new construction. It does not feel overly dense. You have more mature landscaping than some of the newer areas like the brand new build outs. And depending on the property, you might find a little more usable yard space. Discovery Lake isn't exactly Lake Tahoe. It's more like Discovery Pond, but it's a great local amenity to have right within the community. You have a paved path around it. You see people out walking, running, biking, and bringing scooters down there. The kids cruising around. You connect into other trails and work your way towards Double Peak if you really want to stretch your leg. And another big detail, parts of Discovery Hills do not have an HOA. Now, that can be appealing for buyers who like the feel of a master plan community, but don't necessarily want another monthly fee. The trade-off is that the surrounding area has changed a lot. North City, Rancho Tesoro, Mission Circle, the new Kaiser Hospital, and the Hill District are all nearby. Now, that gives you more amenities and more convenience as they build out this area, but it also means more lights, more traffic, and a lot more activity than the area had in the past. If you want more of a full master plan community setup, San Leo Hills is probably one of the first areas you're gonna look at. San Leo sits on the southwest side of San Marcos. It's in its own pocket. It has its own town center, community parks, schools, trails, sports fields, restaurants, and local events. And it feels a lot more like a little community than almost any other neighborhood in San Marcos. The town center is not massive, but you have enough there for day-to-day basics. You have a grocery store, a few restaurants, places to grab a drink, parks, trails, and a community feel that's pretty unique. Housing-wise, San Leo has a pretty wide range. You have smaller detached homes in certain areas, kind of closer to the lower section of the hill. You have larger homes as you move up the hill. You have view properties, and then you have some big higher end homes like closer to Double Peak. One thing to keep in mind is that you're giving up some convenience depending on where you live. You might have a quick e-bike ride or a walk in the town center, but you're not right next to the freeway. You're also gonna deal with Melrose. You also have an HOA that you need to account for. But if your priority is trails, parks, community amenities, and a more complete neighborhood setup, San Leo Hills is gonna be hard to ignore. Another area that deserves its own section is Lake San Marcos. Lake San Marcos is one of the more unique areas in North County. You have the lake, you have the golf courses, you have the lake house resort, you have a few restaurants like Amalfi, and you also have a golf cart friendly feel that you don't see in many other neighborhoods around San Diego. A lot of the detached homes are older. You're gonna find a lot of single story properties, golf course homes, remodels, flips, and some homes that need some work. Now, this isn't the area that you look if you only want brand new construction. But if you want something with a little more character, access to the lake, golf, and a different overall vibe, Lake San Marcos is worth putting on the list. And location-wise, you're on the western side of San Marcos, which can make it a lot easier going towards Carlsbad and the coast. But before you lock onto any one neighborhood, there's one more thing that you need to understand. The daily commute can completely change your experience. The 78 is the main freeway running east to west through San Marcos and kind of splits it in half. The east, you connect to the 15, to the west, you connect to the 5. And on paper, that gives you a solid access through North County and down towards central San Diego. At lighter traffic times, getting around can be pretty manageable. But once you hit rush hour, school drop-offs, school pickups, and some of the major freeway exits, it can be a different story. Nordall can get backed up. Twin Oaks has added more traffic lights and more cars as the surrounding neighborhoods being built out. The 78 and the 15 connection, not exactly everyone's favorite right here in San Diego. And once you get near major shopping areas or freeway ramps, a short drive can take quite a bit longer than expected. So if you have flexibility in your schedule or you work remotely, that can make a big difference. If you're commuting every day, pay close attention to which side of town you're on and how you are realistically getting to work. Another thing people sometimes underestimate is the weather. San Marcos is inland. It's not crazy far from the coast, but it's definitely inland. You're not like in Escondido or a little bit further as you go into Ramona, but can feel noticeably warmer, especially during the summer months. I live closer to the coast. My brother lives in San Marcos, and there have been plenty of days where it feels cool near the beach. Then you head inland and it's completely different. Some areas get a little more breeze than others. San Elijo Hills can be different from the lower valley areas. A newer home with air conditioning is going to be a different experience than an older home without it. And during the coastal May gray or June gloom stretch, the warmer weather can actually be a positive. You may leave an overcast coastal neighborhood and head inland, but during a hotter stretch, you're going to notice a difference. Now, if you really want to understand the future of San Marcos, you need to look at the area around Cal State San Marcos, North City, and the Hill District. This is probably the biggest change happening right now in the city. San Marcos has never really had a traditional downtown. You've had shopping centers, used to have Restaurant Row, but not necessarily one central hub where everything comes together. North City is starting to fill that role. You already have apartments, restaurants, coffee, sushi, Draft Republic, Mesa Rim, the farmers market, events, and new construction happening all around that area. Then you have the Hill District nearby. That is the newer area being built out with a mix of housing types, including some detached options. The detached homes are going to be quite a bit tighter than a traditional older neighborhood. You may have smaller yards, more vertical floor plans, shared driveway style layouts in some sections, HOA fees, and construction around for a while as it continues to build out. But the trade-off is going to be proximity. You're closer to North City, Cal State San Marcos, Kaiser, a few of the new parks that are being built when they build more restaurants and the newer energy in the area. And then you have the redevelopment of the old Restaurant Row area along San Marcos Boulevard. But the general direction is clear. San Marcos is becoming denser, more built out, and more connected around the central corridor. Now that's going to bring more amenities. It'll likely bring more activity. And yes, it's going to bring more traffic. So the growth is both a pro and a con. So who does San Marcos actually make sense for? San Marcos is worth considering if you want a detached home and you're trying to balance price, space, neighborhood amenities, and access to the rest of North County. It can work well if you want more options than you may find closer to the coast. It can work well if you like established suburban neighborhoods, newer communities, trails, parks, golf, or the ability to choose a handful of very different housing styles. It can also make sense if you want to be close enough to the coast to use it regularly, but you don't necessarily need to live right next to the beach. But San Marcos is not going to be the perfect fit for everybody. If you want highly walkable coastal lifestyle, this is probably not the spot. If you want a huge yard and a brand new home at the same time, that can be difficult, especially in some of the newer communities. If you hate warmer inland weather, you may want to look further west. And if traffic is one of your biggest concerns, you may need to be very thoughtful about the exact neighborhood and your daily commute. The big thing is that you cannot treat San Marcos as one single area. Richland is very different from Discovery Hills. Discovery Hills is different from San Elijo Hills. San Elijo Hills is much different from Lake San Marcos. And then you have the Hill District. It's going to be completely different than all of them. San Marcos has changed quite a bit since I grew up here, and it's going to continue changing over the next few years. There's definitely a lot of reasons to put it on your list, but the right neighborhood really depends on your price point, your commute, the type of home you want, and what you want your day-to-day life to look like. So if you are thinking about moving to San Diego and San Marcos is on your list, reach out, shoot us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email. All of our info is right down below in the description. We're the Livin in San Diego real estate crew, and we would love to help get you dialed in. And if you want to keep researching the different areas around San Diego, watch that next video popping up, but I'll see you guys on the next one.